Sixth grade welcome as we continue on lesson 2. Yesterday we got introduced as we started talking about economics, how we use the resources to make money, and then worked our way through it. If you remember this one, it talked about 4 major kinds of resources, but there were actually 5. So we talked about the resources that we have, the labor that you can do the work with, the capital, the money it takes to get started, entrepreneurship, the ability to run a business, and then technology was that 5th one that we worked our way through. Then as we moved on into the next part of it, we talked about supply and demand. Supply, how much of the product do I have? Demand, how much do they want? As demand goes up, guys, the price will go up. As demand goes up and supply goes down, price really goes up. And so we looked at this little chart here to be able to say, hey, they're going to find a balance. Companies obviously want to charge the most money, but if they charge too much, then people just stop buying it. If they charge too little, then they're not making as much money as they can. And so we worked our way through that with the supply and the demand thing, understanding that as we worked our way through that. And then we ended with everything having this, what we call this opportunity cost. Every decision you make is going to cost you something, and then I have to decide if that's worth it. So I'm going to grow corn instead of soybeans, hoping that corn's going to make me more money. If soybeans did it, that was the opportunity. That was a chance I took that goes along with that. Okay? Today we're going to continue on as we talk about our different economic systems, and we're going to look at the different systems that are out there. I have your notes there. Make sure that's sitting there, guys, as we go through this, and I'll read. I keep saying number 1, number 2. You should be filling in those blanks. These should be easy A's in the grade book, and then they should turn around and help you with the assignment when you get to the assignment. So I'm going to get started over here if you're following along on the video. If you have your book in front of you, great. It says, dealing with resources, supply and demand can be very hard. Each society organizes its economy using a different economic system. And we're going to start to go through that, but guys, you already got number 1 filled in from this sentence right here. Okay? Now we'll go into them. Number 2, a traditional economy is based on custom. In such an economy, children often do the same work as their parents. Members of a family or tribe make goods for the rest of their group. In this way, everyone's needs are met. Many hunter-gatherer groups had traditional economies. Okay, so you can see in your notes, you fill in your blank with traditional, and then in parentheses I put the groups that do that. Guys, my parents were both teachers, and now I'm a teacher. That doesn't mean America has a traditional economy. A lot of people in America will do what their parents did because that's what they see, and they go, man, my parents look like they had a good time and they had a nice life, so I want to do the same thing. Traditional means you don't really have a choice. Joseph was a carpenter, and we all believe Joseph taught Jesus to be a carpenter. Those were the traditional economy. So in ancient times, it's traditional. Today, I can't think of countries in the world that are still traditional as far as I'm going to do a job and supply for my community or group that way. Next one, number 3. In a command economy, a central government decides what goods will be made and who will receive them. The ancient civilizations of Egypt and Mesopotamia began as command economies. Rulers gathered the resources of their people. They used those resources to build large products or to raise powerful armies. Today, Cuba and North Korea still have command economies. Okay, so I like what your book did. Number 1, it told you what a command economy was, where the government makes those decisions. They give the command. Number 2, in our ancient books, we're going to talk about that in Egypt. Guys, you think about Joseph when he was in Egypt. What did he do? He gathered all the food together. Then when the famine hit, what did the people do? The famine came to him and said, Joseph, can we have food? And Joseph got to say yes or no. Look, the government will decide who receives them and how much. And so the government is in control of all those things. Guys, today we still have that. Cuba and North Korea, not really on our friend list. We look at them and say, those are dictators controlling everybody's life. America doesn't like that. America wants individuals to have a say in what they're doing. But that's the American way, guys. That doesn't mean Cuba and North Korea are wrong. They just have a completely different economy and a way of making money than we do. Number 4. In your notes and 4th paragraph. In a market economy, each person or individual, you could use either word, guys, makes choices about what to make, sell, and buy. He or she buys and sells goods and services on an open market. The United States has what we call a market economy. Okay, now guys, I get to make the decision. In other words, I decide what I'm going to be when I grow up. I decide what I'm going to buy and sell. If I think Fords are too expensive, I can go buy a Chevy. In other words, I'm not going to complain about these things being too expensive. Why? Because I can always go and buy something else and force those businesses to say, hey, we're going to keep charging this much money, and if everybody in America thinks the price is too high, then no one buys it, guys. And then the company either has to make changes or they go out of business. So in America, we believe, hey, the average individual will make the decisions and do those things to control what is bought and sold and the price. If I'm willing to pay the price that the company is selling it at, well, that's going to be the price. That's the supply and demand equilibrium thing we're talking about. Number 5, in a mixed economy, the government has some control over what and how much is made, and individuals make the rest of the economic choices. Some countries in Europe are mixed economies, so they kind of put these two together, where a government controls a number of things, and then the individuals make the rest. Now, guys, I don't want you to think that our government doesn't control anything. Our government has a lot of rules for businesses that we have to follow as far as safety for their workers and things like that. If Americans ever think that a company is raising prices way too high because of situations, the government will step in. For instance, when we started this COVID pandemic in March, if you remember, all of a sudden all the toilet paper was bought up. Well, our government can step in and say, hey, you can't sell toilet paper for $10 a roll, even though everybody wants toilet paper right now and there isn't that much. A government step in. That doesn't make it a command economy, guys, or move ours to a mix. That's just regulations that are protecting our individuals. Okay, so you got first 5 of your notes done. Moving on, measuring economics. Economies grow and shrink over time. This pattern is called the business cycle. When the economy grows quickly, it's called a boom. Number 6 in your notes. When the economy grows very slowly or when it shrinks, it's called a recession. Number 7 in your notes. In a recession, companies often close and people lose their jobs. The United States entered a recession in December of 2007. Now, we got out of that recession, guys. We actually went through a boom. The last few years, business was really good. Unemployment was low. The stock market was high. People were making a lot of money. And now that's slowed down. Now we'll probably start to hear, guys, this term tossed back out again. You'll probably start to hear the word recession as this pandemic drags on and people are out of a job and some businesses are closing. We might go back into a recession. Not a good thing. Governments try to keep their economies growing and avoid recessions. One way to do this is by watching prices. Okay? Rising prices are a sign of inflation. You're in number 9 in your notes. High inflation means that money buys less. This raises the cost of living. Say that the yearly rate of inflation is 10%. This means that something that cost you $10 last year would cost you $11 this year. Sometimes inflation get very high. In Argentina in the 1980s, the yearly rate of inflation hit 1,000%. So the same good or service would cost 10 times more than they did the year before. So if you go back to this example, guys, last year in Argentina in the 1980s, it cost $10. This year, it would be times 10, so it would cost $100. The next year, it would cost $1,000. You never want inflation like that. Now in America, we average about 4% inflation, which means if it cost you $10 this year, it's going to cost you $10.40 next year. Now, we want to stay away from inflation. The reason we have rising prices, guys, though, is because as a worker, we demand a pay raise. And what you need to understand about demanding a pay raise is if the boss has to pay you more money for working, then he has to turn around and try to make more money to pay for those wages. So what does he do? He raises the price of everything he sells. So I like to talk about in my lifetime, my dad, when he was growing up and McDonald's started to be built everywhere, hamburgers cost $0.25. You're not going to be able to walk into McDonald's and buy it for a quarter. When I was a kid, Happy Meals would go on sale for $1 a Happy Meal. Okay, they don't go on sale for $1 a Happy Meal anymore, right? It costs a lot more than that. But when I was a kid, my first job paid me $3.85 an hour. So I made less money and everything costs less money. And so one of the things you'll hear as we go for in the presidential debates is, should we raise minimum wage to $15 an hour? Well, in my head that says, that sounds great, that's a pay raise for me. But I also have to understand, if they raise my rates and pay me more, then everything I buy is going to cost more. So in the end, guys, it doesn't change a whole lot. It's just more money in, but tragically more money out. That's called inflation. Okay, continuing on. Governments want to avoid having too much inflation. However, experts who study economies disagree about what causes inflation. So finding the right government policies is difficult. Isn't that sad for us? We don't really know what causes inflation, or we can't really agree on it. And the root of the matter is, guys, I don't know about you, but I expect a pay raise when I work for a company for years and years and years. If a company said, we're never going to give you a pay raise, I would probably go try to find a job somewhere else. So pay raises is one thing that drives inflation up. People want more money, it's going to cost more things as we want to do those things. All right, moving on. As we continue to cruise now, it says, trade has been important to many different civilizations. What makes trade between different people so common? Two countries trade with each other when both sides can gain something from the exchange. Okay, so that was number 10. Here we move into number 11. Exports are goods shipped out of a country and sold somewhere else. Imports, moving on with number 12, are goods and services that a country buys from another country. So America makes something and we ship it over to China, that's an export. China makes something and ships it to America and sells it here, that's an import. So a lot of the little electronics and things we buy, on the back side will say made in China, those are imports. You also have to understand, guys, it's hard for us to know that because I'm not living in China or I'm not living in a different country, but there will be things in different countries, just like it says on some of our products, made in China. On some of their products, it'll say made in the USA. So obviously a country wants to be exporting. That means we're selling to more places. So I want to run a business in Milwaukee. Most of the time, you and I will say, okay, sell things to people who live in Milwaukee. And what I really want to do is not only sell to people living in Milwaukee, I want to sell to people all over the place. The more people that are buying, the more business that I'm doing. And so I want to become an international business, guys. I want to be able to export my products to more and more people. It helps me make more and more money. Okay, continuing on. Countries want to export goods for which they have a large supply. They want to import goods that are hard to find in their own lands. For hundreds of years, Europeans traded wool, gold, and silver with Asians for the rare goods that they had, such as silks and spices. So now they give you an example of those things going side to side as they sold those things. So what do I have a lot of? And then what do I have a lot of? I'm going to export out. What do I not have a lot of? That I'm going to import in. Oil is an example for us. Now, America actually has a ton of oil, but we import oil in from other countries because we're trying to protect ours, even though now we're starting to mass produce our oil, and we are mass producing so much oil we actually sell to other countries. Japan is a great country. Tons of technology, but not a lot of natural resources. So Japan would buy our oil, guys. We could export oil to Japan to try to get the things that are moving in. Early civilizations often traded by bartering. This is number 13. When people barter, goods and services are traded for other goods and services. For example, a merchant might trade fish for furs. Eventually, some people invented money. Money had a set value so that you could be traded for anything that was easier to carry. Okay, so guys, back in the day, it was bartering. You have chickens, I have pigs. You sell me eggs, I give you a pig. The problem with that system is you want eggs every single day, but you don't need a pig from me every single day. And so bartering doesn't always work. But why did it start out with bartering? Because we didn't invent money that we all agreed upon. And so it was just a simple, hey, you have something I want, I have something you want, and away we go. That's not ideal. It doesn't happen too much today, but it can still happen. I shingle houses on the side, so I put a new roof on them with those shingles. I've shingled for a number of farmers that say, instead of paying you money to do the job, I'll give you a half of a cow. And so I literally got paid in hamburger, guys. This last year, I literally got paid with a pig. He gave me a pig and sent it to the butcher for me. I shingled his house for him. That's bartering. We didn't exchange any money. We just exchanged goods. I did labor work for you. You gave me a pig for it. So that doesn't happen much today, guys, but that's bartering. They gave you a good example, more of an ancient thing. All right, continuing on. It says, barriers can make international trade difficult. Conflict can stop trade. Geography can make it hard to travel between two places. Sometimes a country chooses to cut off contact with other people. Okay, so you just got number 14. Barriers, conflict, and geography all make trade difficult. In the 1600s, Japan limited trade with European countries. The Japanese wanted to limit European influence on the Japanese society. So what happened, guys? We'll study this, but Japan said, dude, we're the best country out there. And so if people come to our country, they're going to take stuff from us, but they can't teach us anything because we're farther advanced than them. We don't like the way Europe runs its countries, and so they just literally closed its border and says, we don't want you in there. It cut off trade. All right. It says, finally, nations may try to limit or ban trade that hurts producers in their own country. You got your blank for number 15. Banning means stopping it. For example, in the Great Depression, U.S. farmers were worried about foods coming in from Europe. They feared that the European farmers might drive them out of business, so they asked the United States government to raise taxes on the imported crops. The government did so to protect American farmers. This led other countries to tax goods to protect their own farmers and business. And so, guys, we do that still today. I'm going to put what we call it, it's called a tariff. It's a special tax on imports. And so let's say Japan makes Toyota cars and they want to sell them in America. Well, I really want America to buy Chevrolet or Ford because those are American companies. So what do? I put a tax on those imports to make Toyotas more expensive than Chevys or Ford. And so what you're going to do is you're going to say, well, I'm going to buy a Chevy because it's cheaper than the Toyota. And off you go. Now, Japan says, man, America, you're mean. Well, so America's going to do the same, Japan's going to do the same thing to us. When we try to sell our Chevys in Japan, they're going to put that tax on it, guys. So it's trying to protect our own workers with it. Now, today in our free market, what we say is, hey, America, Chevy, Ford, if you want us to buy your cars, you got to be able to make them cheaper and better than Toyota. If Toyota can do it, then go buy a Toyota. That'll teach Chevy how to get there. And so that's just, we like in America, the challenge of it. Can you do business well enough to be able to sell those products and get it there? Okay, finishing it up, guys. Today, most of the world's countries take part in some form of international trade. This trade is called globalization. So you got your blank there, guys. It's not globalization, it's international. Countries like the United States have numerous trade partners. Many large companies also have business branches in more than one country. In other words, yep, there's Amazon in America. There's also Amazon all around the world, guys. We have businesses in other countries. Much of this growth has come from efforts to increase what we call free trade. The goal of free trade is a world market where people are free to choose what to buy and sell. People who favor free trade say it boosts trade. It also cuts the prices of goods. These changes help economies grow. Those against free trade say that it makes imports and foreign labor costs too cheap. They fear that a country will lose companies and jobs to other countries. Okay, so guys, you saw number 17 there. The goal of free trade in the world market is that people are free to choose whatever they want to buy and sell. Your book did a great job. As America, we say, let's do free trade. If somebody in a different country can build it cheaper, great, bring it to America, and now we can buy it cheaper when they sell it to us. So we like free trade, and yet that second part, guys, is also very true. The challenge with that, guys, is some countries don't pay workers what we do. So in America, we have an hourly wage. We have a minimum wage. We also have labor laws, which says little kids can't work. Well, not every country has that, guys. And so other countries say it's okay for people to work for, let's say, $2 an hour. We would never do that in America, but other countries do that. And so if you're only paying your workers $2 an hour, guess what? You can make stuff really cheap, can't you? And so that last line is saying sometimes this isn't fair because I might be buying products from a different company because they sell them so cheap, but they might be selling them cheap because they take advantage of their workers. And so when we get to this global level, guys, we're trying to make other countries pay their workers so that it's fair. That's the challenge with that, just trying to help you understand it. Last paragraph. Globalization has increased the ties among world economies. Your last blank for number 18. In 2009, the United States had the largest economy in the world. In fact, the U.S. economy was bigger than the next two leading countries, Japan and China. Guys, that's 2009. Our economy was so good that second place and third place, add them together, doesn't even equal ours. That's not true anymore. China's economy is absolutely booming, and ours is struggling to the point where China could pass us. We're still the largest, but the day is coming. Every day, Americans buy and use goods made in other countries. At the same time, American goods and services are sold around the world. When the U.S. economy struggles, it literally affects the entire world. The question about what to make, how to make it, and who should buy it are no longer just national issues. So we need to understand this global thing. We have a huge impact, guys, and that's why a lot of world leaders go into things. That's also why there's a lot of world organizations trying to control that. And we just have to balance with what's best for America and yet still do business in the world. Okay, we're done with the second half of lesson 2 here. So you have a worksheet going along with this one. Remember, it'll also go back to Monday, and you put the two together to answer those questions. Blessings on your day.